solemnly acknowledge that we are meeting on traditional and ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people, where we live, learn, and play. Moving to item 2, adoption of the agenda. I just ask you to delete item 8.2.5 as it is covered in the prior agenda items. So I would like a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Moved by Trustee Thorne, seconded by Trustee Croft. All those in favor, please keep your hands up so that I can count. All in favor, thank you. Moving to item 3, minutes. And I'm going to switch from calling you to put up your hands when you are in favor to calling out you to put up your hand only if you are negative to defeat the motion. So first is A, minutes of the March 3rd, 2020 open board meeting, and I need a motion to adopt the minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Trustee DeGroot, seconded by Trustee Croft. Anyone not in favor? Okay, motion carries. Moving to minutes of the March 5th, 2020 meeting, a motion to adopt those minutes. Moved by Trustee Croft, seconded by Trustee Thorne. Anyone not willing to vote in favor? Motion carries. No recognition and delegations. Report of closed meeting, item 5, Secretary Treasurer.
Thank you. The board met in closed session just prior to this session. We covered off multiple personnel items and facility items.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer. Moving to item 6, old business on the action list. And Secretary Treasurer, would you put those up for us? Please, thank you. Okay, the first I would mention that we have put in the delayed due to COVID-19 under meeting with First Nations. You'll remember that we had the Cowichan Valley Métis Nation meeting organized and it has been postponed. Anything else on the first? Oh yes, sorry, March the 3rd, the Cowichan Leadership Group, and I was to write letters to the list of ministers contacted by the leadership group regarding the mental health and opioid and homelessness crisis. And before I got to that, I guess my partners had already sent their letters in because as you may have seen the news release, that request for funding has been approved, and it will be a new wellness and recovery center opened in the Cowichan Valley in the fall. So I do need to ask you to do a motion to rescind that motion. So moved by, I'm sorry, I can't tell unless there's hands. So Trustee Thorne and Trustee Croft. Anyone not in favor of that motion? Okay, the motion carries. Moving us back to the action list, please, page 2.
That's it.
Just a little bit up. Okay.
Just one page.
It's just one page. Okay, so we have completed the action list unless there are questions from trustees. Okay, seeing none, moving to item 7, Chair of the Board. I don't really have anything to update you on. I think what I do need to do though is say how thankful we are as a board for the staff that we have in our school district. People have come together. First of all, our district staff came back during the second week, our spring break, and started to organize for the situation we were moving into with COVID-19. And we have to thank all of those district staff people who were able to do that, followed by our principals, vice principals who came into the schools and started organizing around continuing education for our kids, as well as keeping our staff and students safe, and all of us, and our custodians who did the deep cleaning and continue to clean for us. Yep. The bus drivers for helping out in whatever ways, as well as picking up and delivering food for our students, our teachers who are keeping the communications going with our students and their families and developing the learning opportunities for those in their classes, our EAs for supporting that work in however way they can, our clerical workers who are doing whatever they can to support the situation that we're in. And we just feel really grateful for the staff that we have because they are responding so well to support each other, to support our students, our staff, our families, and our community. People may know that we are one of the 4 school districts that came back before anyone else because we left early for our vacation. And so that's brought us certain problems around it because so many of our staff traveled and had to quarantine after, but it put us in a lead. We're one of the 4 districts in the province that people are looking to because we were there earlier trying to figure this out. And so with Campbell River, Kamloops, Buckley Valley, Cowichan Valley has become a leader in the province. And we want to thank our staff for that because they are leading us through this in a very safe and healthy way to support our students and families, staff, and the community. So I just say that on behalf of the board, we really do appreciate everything that's being done in our district. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to move on to Superintendent of Schools. Trustee.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move to 8.1. I'd like to start with 8.1.1. I'd like to introduce Tom Sparrow. He has been hired as our Chief Project Officer for the replacement of Cowichan Secondary School. I believe he is on our Zoom this evening. So if Tom, if you would like to say hello to all of us, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you so much, Robin, and to the chair and the school district council. I want to say hello and to thank the school district for giving me this opportunity to be part of this amazing opportunity that's going to provide such a legacy for not only Duncan and the North Cowichan area, but obviously for the entire district. So I'm here to help. I'm here to assist. I do come with quite a bit of background in managing large infrastructure projects. For those of you that aren't familiar, I did actually just recently completed the 2 North Island Hospital schools, one in Courtenay and the other in Campbell River. Lived both, at that time I lived both in Courtenay and also in the Cowichan Bay area. And since then I still live in the Cowichan Bay area and also commute back and forth to the mainland every once in a while as well. So have a very good background and knowledge of the area. We've lived there since about 2015 and have been engaged as well with the proposed Cowichan school, or excuse me, Cowichan Hospital project as well. So I've worked closely with the regional district and actually some of the planning department, et cetera, with North Cowichan on that project over the last 3 or 4 years in preparation for that project as well. So I'm here to help, assist, and guide and provide whatever support you as the the board requires in order to ensure that this is a successful project for everybody that is directly related to this project. So thank you so much for inviting me today.
Well, thank you for joining us, Tom. We are very excited about the Cowichan Secondary School replacement program, and excited too that we have such qualified people joining us to make sure that we're proceeding in the right and the most efficient way. So welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for joining us this evening.
You're
So
welcome.
you're welcome. Thanks. Moving on to 8.1.2 on the agenda, I would like to provide a personnel update. I'd like to share with the board that our facilities manager, Brian Branting, he has postponed his retirement. He's postponed his retirement due to the fact that with the COVID-19 situation that has emerged, that he's here to help and here to support us as we go through this emergent situation. Secondly, I'd also like to give an update with regard to our SIS manager, our Systems Information Manager. We have hired somebody new, and as of June 1st, that individual will come on board. But in the meantime, our Sandra Whiting will continue staying in that position to again help us through this period of time of this emergent situation during this next few months. If there's no questions, I'll move on to 8.2.
Just before you do that, though, I think you can give both Brian and is it Sharon? Sandra, the board's thanks. We really appreciate the job that they do and are really appreciative that they will continue at this time where stability is really important. So thank them.
Thank you. Moving on to 8.2.1, just to provide the board that presently right now we have all of our schools, of course, as we have suspended in-class learning, all of our schools have been managed and opened up with principals and vice principals who have been doing an excellent job in providing the safety and health protocols that are related to entering our buildings. So presently, we have custodial staff in our buildings along with the principals and vice principals, and any staff who follow the protocols that have been set up by the principal have been eligible to go into schools to retrieve materials or any learning resources that they do need during this particular time. We have also established protocols around working alone and working at home alone. So there has been some great work that has occurred by our manager of health and safety, Kelly Kinghorn, around entering the building and working through some of those protocols that are very different and have been newly established in this situation with COVID-19.
Trustee Thorne, do you have your hand up for a question? Oh, we can't hear you. Is there?
You're muted.
Trustee Thorne, are you back?
I'm back.
Oh, good. Yeah.
A few days ago, Candace, if you remember, I spoke with you about Jordan's principal and their purchasing or giving schools or students free iPads and stuff. Has anything happened with that at all?
I know that it was passed to our senior staff, and they're looking into it.
Okay.
Back to Superintendent, please.
Okay, I'll move on to 8.2.2. We have a program called Food for Kids, and this has been led by a couple of members of our senior staff. They have been working with our community and a food task force. So we are just so pleased with the number of organizations that have stepped up and supported the school district to deliver a number of food packages for our kids for the last 3 weeks, kids and their families. And so the first week we delivered upwards of 40 food bags. Last week it went up to 150 bags of food that were delivered on Thursday and Friday. And the staff and our community, they are gearing up for upwards of 250 to 270 grocery bags that will be delivered to our families and students coming up this week. So we just feel so fortunate that we're working with the greater community around supporting our families and our kids around food for them at this challenging time.
Thank you. Any questions from trustees? Great work. Thank you. Moving back to you.
All right, 8.2.3. Presently, right now, we have started just this week with regard to the essential service workers and supporting their children and care for their children while they're at work. So we have about 5 schools presently who have begun working to provide educational services for these frontline workers. And so we're very thrilled that we're looking to support students of the ages 5 to 12. We started this work about 3 weeks ago when we put out a survey on our website where we asked families who might be in the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 categories, and did they have any need for educational services and care for their children. So we're also very excited that our senior team members as well they have put this together. We have collaborated, and we are providing these opportunities for our frontline workers who so need it at this point of time. We can also see that in the future there might be more need, and so certainly if there would be a family that has that need, they can certainly reach out to their principal and work through their schools in terms of receiving that care.
Any questions from trustees? Trustee Hutchins?
Yeah, thank you to the superintendent. So what hours is this service provided? And if I'm first line worker and I don't need it today because I'm not on duty for another week and a half, can I just drop in any time, or do I have to, my kids have to attend the whole time?
Back to
the students do not have to attend all the time. Principals and vice principals have been gathering those details. So on one given day, on a Monday, there may only be a handful of children. On Tuesday, it would go, I guess, according to their particular need. It's not drop-in at this point in time. Certainly families would have to coordinate that with their principal and or their vice principal. We are providing care right now from 8 to 4. And if there is a need that is greater than that, we will be looking upwards of providing opportunities for 12-hour shift workers as they bring forward some of their needs to us.
Thank you. Trustee Kemmler? Oh, Trustee Kemmler, we have no voice. No voice.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Being as they're essential workers and on the front lines, what are we doing to ensure our staff's safety? Because they'll be going home being with their parents at night and then possibly, being in contact. So will we be having social distancing, or what will we be doing to ensure our workers' safety?
Thank you. Superintendent?
Thank you. Yes, thank you. We have a number of protocols that have been put in place. We have been working closely with the provincial health officer and another health medical provider related to setting up those protocols. And so they have been certainly established and localized from our end. Presently, there's only a small grouping of children at each site. And so as we move forward, we definitely establish physical distancing, hand washing protocols, and continue to do that work. And we also do know that our healthcare workers, they have established protocols that are very, very clearly outlined by medical services. And so as the children come in, we will be doing everything to support appropriate health and safety protocols.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions on the supervision for essential services workers? Okay, moving on then, Superintendent.
Moving on to 8.2.4. Presently, our senior team, along with principals and vice principals, they've worked very diligently to coordinate a school district 79 continuity for learning plan. All principals and vice principals would have received it last Thursday. They would have shared it with their staff, whether it be last Friday or this past Monday. And so we have all of our schools gearing up and organizing and coordinating for providing those educational services to all of their classrooms and students as of the mid-April next week. We know that all teachers have reached out to their students and their families. They're most appreciative of that. And so at this time, it's around their social, emotional well-being, and also asking questions just to make sure that the family's okay, and just really providing that compassionate care and that comfort right now. And while those conversations are occurring, we know that some families may have some needs around technology. And so we're working toward that end. And so I think that schools and teachers and principals and vice principals, they are working collaboratively and very hard to get that continuity of learning plan ready to go for all families. But we're also very cautious that we don't want to overwhelm some of our families. So it's a nice, healthy balance that we have to approach this, because some of our families are working full time. And so a lot of learning has to happen at home. And so we're doing everything we can to support in whatever way we can at this time.
Are there further questions? I'd just like to comment to the superintendent that I'm really happy to hear around the sensitivity for parents, particularly our essential services workers in the community. Their demands and their stress is already high, and adding on what could be called homeschooling is really moving them to higher anxieties. So anything we can do to support that is great for the community. Thank you. Okay, you want to move on to your update?
Well, yes, 8.2.6, just to provide an update overall. This has certainly been a difficult and unprecedented time. I know that what I say sometimes to our principals and vice principals, that we are certainly leading in a time that is very different than it ever has been. So I do want to express my gratitude to all of the staff for their hard work. They have been certainly working diligently and being patient while we are trying to organize from the senior end. I also want to thank the custodians, the maintenance crews, and the bus drivers who did nothing more but continue to enhance the custodial services and prepared our buildings and our buses through that period of time from March 23rd to the 27th to allow our staff to come back into the buildings. They have certainly worked through some of those health and safety protocols initially, so we're just impressed with all of their work. I'd also like to thank the staff who have been adapting to working from home. We still have the continuity of our business services that need to continue, and for their willingness to be flexible during these exceptional times. The district senior leadership team as well, some of the work that has occurred here that I reported on this evening certainly has them leading this endeavor with principals and vice principals and their school staff. And so I'd like to thank them as well. And with regard to our teachers and our QP staff at the school sites, the work that they have done with regard to their dedication to their learners and the community and their families has been extraordinary. Many have come out to help, to either provide those essential service workers with some care for their children at this hard time, and many also have stepped in to help deliver food. So much appreciated. I'd like to also share that there's been a number of things that have been postponed or canceled during COVID-19. And so I want to go through a list right now, just so that people are aware that some of these sessions have been postponed or canceled. So on March 30th and April 1st, we were to have a strategic planning half-day sessions ×4 around each of our priority areas. So that has been postponed. And so in the near future, we will be looking forward to coordinating that again. Also on March 31st, we had Shelley Moore coming to our district, and that has been canceled. On April the 2nd, we would have had our Ignite and Bite session led by our learning team. That has also been canceled. And unfortunately, we had a group of international educators from Australia. They were doing a study group, and they were to have arrived yesterday on April the 6th, and we have postponed them, and we're looking at April of 2021 for them to come back and have bring their study group with them. On April the 21st, we have a non-instructional day. So we will be coordinating that quite differently, but we had to cancel our speaker. And then lastly, our April 28th to the 30th, the Deeper Learning Dozen that our team, Cowichan Valley School District, is part of, it has been changed to a virtual meeting. And so it will be done very differently. And so I want to alert the board of a number of those postponements or cancellations. And that is my report, unless there's any questions.
Okay, doesn't look like we have any questions. Thank you for all your work, and particularly for the new virtual work that's going on. It's quite amazing how flexible and adaptable humanity is. So thank you. Okay, moving to item 9, Secretary Treasurer.
Thank you. I have a number of financial items, so I'm going to share the screen. Easier to go through them when you can see them in front of you. Just a moment. So I'm beginning with the 2019-2020 year-end projection. There's been quite a change in this projection since we last met. We reviewed this as of January 31st, 2020, and now I'm looking at it as of February 29th, adjusting for what we've known since that time. So when we looked at the revenues previously, we had not yet received the grant funding for the support staff wage increases that were negotiated last year. So those are now incorporated here into the revenue figure. We've also now received finalization on the number of students that we had in the February count, which brings in another 250,000. So I'm now showing our provincial grants being up by about $613,000 due to those two items. We were anticipating the support staff funding already. Showing that we are currently under budget on international program, the effects of COVID-19, many of those started to influence our program as early as January, with some of our short-term programs coming in out of China, unable to attend for spring session. And then down a little bit lower here, another one to point out is our interest revenue is still projected to be about $350,000 for the year, which we budgeted $220,000. But we're going to see that significantly drop as we move in towards the end of the year. We've already seen our interest rates drop in half. So the amount of money that we're receiving through our investments is going to be going down into the end of the year, but it still looks pretty solid. So overall, I think our revenues look like they're going to be up by about $420,000. Moving down the list here, just going to scroll into the expenditures. Probably the most significant shift here is in our casual replacement line, where previously we were looking at that figure being somewhere in the neighborhood. I think the last projection was getting close to $750,000 of being over budget on casual replacements. That was simply just due to the amount of long-term illness and just illness in general that was happening in the district for the first part of the year. That's significantly altered now with the requirement to not have to replace our staff during this time as they're working from home. So we're going to see that our costs are significantly dropped for the balance of the year, which actually brings our casual replacement budgeting very, very close to budget. Looking at in-service, certain of our budgets where we would typically have release time in, such as extracurricular or department head, there won't be release time for those either as we move ahead. So I've left a contingency in those budgets, assuming that if we are back in June, that we have funding set aside for those, but those are significant changes in the amount of almost $1 million between those two items. And so when we apply that with the increased revenue, we're looking at right now a projected surplus of $1.585 million. Previous to that, we thought that that was going to be, significantly lower, if not almost on budget. So significant changes with the effects of COVID-19 on the budget. So any questions on the financial projection? I mean, what this will allow us to do is to look at some surplus as we balance into next year's budget.
Good. Trustee Croft and then Trustee Hutchins.
Excuse me, I'm just wondering how it works for not replacing teachers if they're unwell, just because they're not required in the classroom. So is there another teacher available to help out, or how does that work?
Mr. Sanquist or Superintendent?
Well, I left some funding in there for replacements, but typically, you know, a lot of this work is done from home now versus before where it had to be in person. And I think that's going to be the main change. There may be circumstances where there is still a TTOC required or another casual required, but we have a lot of individuals currently employed that should be able to cover most of that need.
Thank you. Trustee Hutchins?
So the 1.585 million you have is a surplus. That's not including what we have in our reserves right now.
That's correct. There's that reserve is still there.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question.
Doman?
Is there any word from the provincial government whether they'll claw back any of this because of what's going on?
Thank you. Secretary Treasurer?
Yeah, not at this time. What they have said is that they've committed our funding for the year. And so that would be a different message if they were going to be pulling that back. Doesn't mean, we'll have to watch that as we go through our budget process and if we rely on some of that surplus to help us balance. But at this time, there's no messaging that there'll be any recoveries.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further questions from trustees? Okay, thank you for all that work, Secretary Treasurer, and perhaps your Assistant Secretary Treasurer as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I'll go into the next share screen. So what we have here are just a couple of documents, and I'm not going to go through them in a great deal of detail because I have a better analysis a little bit later on. But what this is our funding announcement, which is broken out into counts in September, February, and May. So a couple of highlights that I'll get to a little bit later are we're seeing a slight reduction in our supplement for the education plan. So that is the funding that we've received for the transition to the new curriculum. So that's about half what it used to be. And we're going to see some increases in the various funding levels, and I'll have an analysis on that just a little bit later on. Also included in your package for interest, the summary of grants to date. So for our district, the operating grant is showing at 82,490,551, but it also shows us our other various grants, such as the Classroom Enhancement Fund projection, 7.9 million. So that is for the restored collective agreement language with the that we jointly share with the teachers. We're also find our other grants here as we go across, such as our transportation grant at 298, our community link of 667. What's the other one there? Sorry, a second. Our annual facilities grant operating portion is 384. And then 363 will be our pay equity funding. And 283, actually, that's our transportation. The 298 is our improvement fund. So just to break down our various grants, the budgeting that I wanted to show you, but I'll move into some more details here now. So to look at the actual grant, I've shown it to you over the last 3 years. You can see how our rates have changed. We're currently going to be funded for 2020, 2021 at $7,560 per regular pupil, which is a change of $92. Now, there's some things that are now included in this rate that weren't previously, and I'll get into those on the next sheet here, but it's not just that we've gone up by $92 per pupil. Some ones have just been redirected into the per pupil rate that we received outside of the per pupil rate previously. Also see that our level 1, 2, and 3 special needs funding has gone up. as has our English language learner, Aboriginal education, and adult education. So moving through the grant comparison, just looking at this year's grant, which we have under the estimated 2019-2020 column, and the estimated grant announcement for 2020-2021. You can see that based on our enrollment-based funding, and we're only up a few FTE, we're up modestly this year, we're generating another 943,000. You can see under the unique student needs, which includes the new equity of opportunity supplement, which replaced our what we would have considered to be our community link enhancement funding before by 153,000. So the total unique student needs is up at 468,436. Under unique geographic factors, you see that that's up by 411,000. And they put another one of our grants in there, which is a grant that we previously received for, basically it's for our carbon offsets, to help us pay with our carbon offsets. So that's now showing in that fund. So overall, it appears that we're up by 2.2 million on the grant. And the next sheet will show you how that actually, what we're actually up. So if we compare the two grant years, this year's grant funding being 82,495.51, and we look at the grant of the previous year, which was 80,286,674. There's where that $2,203,000 difference is. But we're no longer receiving the funding for the employer health tax. That's now in the per pupil rate. We're no longer receiving the carbon tax reimbursement. That's now in the geographic factors. We're no longer receiving the support staff benefit funding. That's in the per pupil rate, as is the support staff labor settlement. So they've just taken some of the side grants and put them into their per pupil. So that $92 per student now incorporates all of those items. So if you look at it as a comparative, we're up by 986,000 over the prior year, which is still pretty good. That included in that 986 is the funding that's required for our support staff settlements, not for a teacher agreement yet.
Thank you. And is some of that generated by new student enrollment?
Yeah, a fair bit of that is going to come out of the enrollment increases in our designations, as well as our student numbers, just our per pupil numbers.
Thank you. Any further questions from trustees? Yeah.
See if there are.
Just 1 second. I don't have everybody on screen here yet. Who am I missing here?
So,
sorry, missed Trustee DeGroot up in the corner there. Okay. Superintendent, or no, Secretary Treasurer.
So next week we'll bring a more thorough reconciliation with the expenditure side of the equation, but just wanted to give you the grant reconciliation, which is something we would typically be covering off at this time. The next thing we're going to review is the revised budget development timelines. So I'm just going to bring that up. So I'm showing the 2020-2021 budget development schedule. So we have struck the March 24th meeting because it did not occur. That's typically when we would be doing what we're just reviewing today around the first review of the ministry formula and funding announcement. We have removed, so yeah, the next line item is the online survey. That was scheduled to go out last Thursday, and with all the communication that's been going out to parents and families and community this week, we decided to hold that off until Wednesday. So the survey will go out on Wednesday. It will still close on the same date. It will still close on April the 19th, so the budget survey. And that document is now ready and to be posted tomorrow. We've also struck the board's BCSTA AGM. That event has been canceled, and it's one that we typically work around for as trustees aren't in district at that time. And we've also removed our April 21st public meeting. As we're no longer able to meet in public, we'll be using the survey to collect that public feedback. But we're still on target to have our complete substantially complete by April 28th to allow our staffing assignments to begin on May the 6th.
Thank you. That's great. We still have to meet that ministry timeline.
Yes.
Trustee DeGroot, you have a question?
Well, it's not a question, it's just a comment. Thursday is not the 8th. Tomorrow is, that's Wednesday. And I think it says Thursday, the 8th on the document.
Okay, thank you. And is it Wednesday or Thursday that the survey will
Wednesday.
on Wednesday? Okay. Any other questions about the adjusted budget process and timeline? Okay, so we're ready to move on. Thank you. Oh, Secretary Treasurer, you're still on. Okay.
I do. I have board action.
Yes, you do.
So on just prior to spring break and after our last board meeting, we received our Ministry of Education response to our 5-year capital plan submission. So I just wanted to quickly review that with the board, and then we'll be looking for a motion to adopt the bylaw to proceed with the funding. So under the new projects, minor capital projects, we're receiving a boiler upgrade for this facility. We are receiving $500,000 in roofing replacements, and you can see the sites there. Some schools are, one school is under lease, the other schools are currently operating, but we'll be getting some roofing funding for those. We received funding for 4 buses. And one of these buses, we're exploring a very exciting opportunity to alter the grant amount with some supplemental grants that are available to purchase our first all-electric school bus. And so in proceeding with that, which aligns with our green initiatives, and it's a great start. And with all the grants that are in place, I think the cost is almost identical to purchasing the gas buses. It may be within $5,000 to $10,000 differential on a $400,000 school bus. So that's a really exciting opportunity. And if we achieve it, we will have an electric school bus here by February.
That is wonderful news. Any questions or comments from other trustees?
I do.
Oh, Trustee Kemmler. Excuse me just a moment before you start. Just wait for the view to come back so I can see the hands. That's good. Trustee Kemmler.
That amount for the roofs, and it's also said building wrap. Are we still wrapping some buildings, or are we just doing roofs?
That's roofs.
Just roofs, okay. And that is exciting about the electric school bus, really exciting.
Thank you. Trustee Croft.
This is just a curious question. How does one charge a school bus, an electric school bus? That must take some adaptation in the bus barns.
Correct, and that's part of the funding program, is it provides that infrastructure.
Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. Any further questions of the Secretary Treasurer? Okay.
Good work.
Oh, good work, I heard from Trustee Thorne. Okay, back to Secretary Treasurer.
Thank you. I'm just going to go to the share again because I have a number of motions related to adopting the capital plan so we can activate the capital response or to receive our funding. So there are 4 motions here, and it is typical to do a capital bylaw at this time. And you can see that we're asking for waiving of the 3rd meeting, which is required under our bylaws. We'd like to just start with the first motion, which would see that the Board of Education of School District number 79, Cowichan Valley, gives first reading to capital bylaw number 20-02 capital plan 2020-2021.
Thank you. We do not have the whole vision of, oh, there we go. Thank you. So a motion to give first reading.
So moved.
Seconded by Trustee DeGroot. All those, anyone not in favor? Okay, motion is carried. Moving to the second motion to give second reading to the capital bylaw. Moved by Trustee Croft, seconded by Trustee Thorne. Anyone not in favor? Motion carries. Moving to consider 3 readings at this meeting. Motion to approve trustee DeGroot and trustee Thorne. All anyone not agree with that motion? Okay, passed. Moving to the 3rd and final reading of the capital bylaw number 2002. Motion to proceed. Moved by trustee Thorne, seconded by trustee Croft. Is there anyone who disagrees with the motion? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Secretary Treasurer.
Have we lost the superintendent on this call?
We have.
I may just take my computer out to the main area and we'll distance appropriately. So I'm just going to
We'll wait for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see the superintendent. Can she hear us as well?
Yeah, yes, we are appropriately distancing.
Okay, and both can hear us. Okay, we're moving to item 10, which is committees and outside organizations. And the first is the DSAC meeting on March the 4th, which I attended. So I will move that the Board of Education of School District 79, Cowichan Valley receives the highlights of the March 4th, 2020 DSAC meeting. Moved by Spilsbury, seconded by Thorne. Anyone not agree with that? Okay, motion carries. Moving to item 11, upcoming meetings and events. And I'd ask the Secretary Treasurer if you could put that up for us, please.
Second, just clicking the link.
Thank you.
Is it not showing here? Something appears in front of it. A second. Well, that's a little bit technical difficulty. Now that I'm off my main monitor, I clearly have something that's interfering on my laptop. So I'm sorry, possibly Claire could put those up.
Or I could just read them out, which if you could note any dates that you don't have already. We have a special board education and business committee meeting on April 14th at 4 o'clock. So the chair of the committee will get to have this wonderful Zoom experience chairing. And we'll need to have an agenda prep. Partner group liaison meetings on the budget, and all trustees hopefully will be available on April the 21st. The actual times are being coordinated right now, so watch for those. The advisory committee meeting, and again, advisory committee chair, if you will note, April 21st at 4:30 p.m. All of these by Zoom, of course, and that's another agenda prep that will come. We have a special board education and business committee meeting for April 23rd at 4 o'clock. And then we have another board education and business committee meeting on April 28th at 4 p.m. all via Zoom and all related to the budget. Mr. Sandquist.
And we added a board planning.
Yes.
Thursday at 3:30. That was that's come about since we did the agenda.
Right. Okay. And that's at 3:30, correct? On this Thursday, April the
9th.
9th.
Thank you. Okay. So any further comments or questions on the item there on the upcoming meetings and events, you'll notice that we are moving back to stabilize the district in terms of the business operation. So any further comments on that? Okay, back to the agenda. There's no correspondence, no new business. We're on question period, and people from the audience can type in a question. And the question needs to be, of course, related to the agenda. So now's your time. If there's anyone watching us, if you have a question on the agenda items, please take this opportunity to type in your question. I'm a slow typist, so I'm waiting.
We have a comment in our questions.
Yes, it's been there for quite a while, though. Oh, here we go. There's one from our president of DPAC, Carmen. Was there any correspondence from Island Health on the new health and wellness center that was to open? Yes, and there's also, and I'm answering you now, Carmen, and yes, there was a press release, and of course, the press release included the Cowichan Leadership Group, who are our mayors, our chair of the regional district, the RCMP, the medical health officer, the chair of the Board of Education, MLAs and MP. We released a news release that was put on our website, I hope, as it was asked for. And it has all the information about the Wellness and Recovery Center. And it will be opening in the fall.
Chair?
Secretary Treasurer?
Under the Q&A as well at the bottom, there's also comments.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. It's a nice one here from Chris Rolls. Well, they're all nice, I'm sure. But Chris Rolls, thank you for having an audience. I'm not going to take my answer, Chris. I'm just going to say thank you for sending that in. We have a question from a person saying, why the delay in communication? And I'm going to refer that one for us to look at because I'm assuming that you mean that the transmission of the board meeting is not coming quickly. So we'll look into that. Thank you. And then we have a comment. I came in late, but I do have a comment. Thank you for info on partner liaison meetings. I was hoping to hear that info. I look forward to that meeting. Thank you for all the hard work and support during these interesting times. Well, thank you very much. And we look forward to meeting with you as well. And back to Chris, thank you for having an audience still take part in the board meetings. That's great to know. Thank you for those people who are in our audience. Okay, and back to the chat, I guess. From Carmen, from DPAC, thank you. The communication pieces have been great in these trying times. Well, thank you for the questions and the thank yous and the involvement. We appreciate you as well, and collectively we'll work through this new time together. Okay, back to the agenda. We're on item 15, adjournment. Motion to adjourn, Trustee DeGroot, and seconded by, I can only see half of you. Just a minute. Let me, oh, there we go. Moved by Trustee DeGroot, seconded by Trustee Kemmler. All those in favor? Oh, hands. I like to see hands. Thank you. And we can leave the meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.